So I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you have customer segments that you employ at your company? And I imagine the vast majority of you do, even if you don't have them that you work on yourself, because we've been talking about it at BOLO for years. If you use Google, if you use Twitter, if you use anything else, they're talking about it as well. It's how you target advertising, it's how you bring in customers. But here's the thing, they're static. So I want to tell you a story about Allie and Amber. Allie and Amber are buying health insurance. And they fall in the same segment. Both of them are 37 years old. They're married, they have husbands, they have 2 kids, they live in the same zip code, and they even enjoy the same things. They like things like cooking and cycling and stuff like that. They fall into the exact same segment. And you can see on the right-hand side, this is an ad that they came across, and it's showing that they can be confident if they have health insurance through this company. So they went ahead and they enrolled. Up to this point, these customer segments did an amazing job of understanding who the customer is and bringing them into the company. But at that point, it broke down. They needed customer support. They actually both got in an accident, separate accidents, but very similar. They had to do with cycling, and they had different needs when that happened. So Allie, she needs quick access to her information. She's been in an accident like this before. She knows how the claim process works. All she needed was to talk to an insurance company and understand what the information that she needed to tell the doctors was. On the other hand, Amber, this is the first time that she had been in an accident like this. And because of that, she needed a helping hand. She needed compassion from the support rep who she called. She needed to be walked through the steps of support. But here's the thing, up to this point, the insurance company thought that they were in the exact same segment. And because of that, both of them talked to the exact same person who works off the exact same script. And because of that, it took several minutes in the call at a time in their lives when they were very, very stressed. It took several minutes for them to get to the point where their needs were actually being met. And that's because a marketing segment is not the same as an experience segment. If you look at the journey that a customer goes through, sure, a marketing segment is great for acquiring new customers, for understanding who they may be, and for bringing them on board. But after that, they have different needs as they go throughout that experience. That's when we have to turn to experience segmentation. It doesn't matter. I asked you guys about how many of you have segments. I'm sure all of you have CRMs as well. You can go through that list. It doesn't matter if their name is Allie or Amber, Mike, Jacob, or whatever other name you have in your database. They all need an experience that's customized to their needs. They need to be able to adapt. So Sal, a little bit earlier today, did an amazing job talking to us about what job to be done is, why customers hire on a product or a service. And as we wrap up, I don't want to torment you too much with a photo of Snickers here, but think back to what those candy bars, what they were actually doing. They were very, very similar products between Milky Way and Snickers. In fact, you could even say they're the same product, except they reach different experience segments of their customer base. With that in mind, I want you to think about how we can break down your customer base based upon their needs. It's actually very similar to traditional segmentation in the fact that it helps us as marketers understand who the customers are. It helps us disseminate that information through the team, and as a result of that, we can build loyalty, we can build customer advocacy, and we can build a stronger customer base overall. But there is one key difference between those two types of segmentation. The marketing segments, they focus on who. They look at, Allie and Amber, the demographics and the psychographics that they exhibited before they came to the company, but it was passive. The experience segments, they focus on the what. What do they need in the moment? What are they feeling? What do they need to feel? It talks about their actual experience. So Sal also showed us this a little bit earlier. It's the example of a need statement. When I insert context, I need a particular action to happen so that a particular outcome occurs. And that's the thing. We can actually use that statement. We can break that down into its individual parts to understand how those customers are segmented out by their needs. You see, they enter into your company. They find you because they're in a particular context, either through a platform or a situation. Let's start with situational context. So these are what they're doing at the time when they start engaging with your company. The situational context is something that we often cannot control, but it is something that we can research, that we can plan for, and that will help us understand the needs that the customers have. But then we also have platform context. And I have a photo of a phone up here, but it can be anything. It can be a physical context. It can be the need for me to have a mic so that I know that you all can hear me when I'm talking. It can be any particular need as they go throughout that context, as they go throughout that experience. But then we also have the outcome, and the outcome is important because that's what they ultimately have to complete, to be satisfied with your service, to be satisfied with your product, and to understand the needs that they're going to you for. So how do we apply this? This is called needs-based segmentation, and it's a strategy to understand what the needs of your customers actually are and how they break down. And we can do this by asking your customers two specific questions. The first one is, how often does a user encounter a particular context, aka frequency? And then, how well is the user able to achieve a given outcome, aka performance? And we can collect these in a number of different ways. The first one is survey data. This is very useful for initial loading of a CRM or other customer database. It's useful for understanding who those customers are and how they're broken down within your customer base. But then we can also go into more detail. We can look at interaction history. Steve was talking about the Magic Pass at Disneyland a little bit earlier. That's not only for the customers, it's also for Disney, because they can understand how someone is interacting and change that experience up a little bit to better fit the needs of other people who have performed similar actions. We can use heuristic learning models to learn from those actions and apply a model across your entire customer segment. And we can even use empathy awareness training. And empathy awareness training is something where we can go out to frontline staff and explain to them how the users within your organization interact with them and how they can alter their behaviors on the fly to better adapt to the needs of your users. So at Audacious Studios, we love coffee. We drink coffee all the time, and because of that, I actually did a small study for the purpose of this, for this talk, about coffee and the needs that coffee is fulfilling for us. And to do this, a few months ago, I went down to a coffee shop down the street, and I started doing some mini interviews to understand why people went to the coffee shop. And this is only a subset of needs that you see up on the screen: to feel more connected to the community, to get work done away from the office, even to go there to find a date. There's any number of needs that go beyond simply wanting coffee or a relaxing place to hang out. So using this information, we polled a number of people about the frequency and performance question that I showed earlier. How often does a context occur, and how well is that outcome met? And we can look and we can see how those segments break down. I'm going to skip ahead for a second. Within each of these segments that you see up on the screen here, we have that context and that outcome broken down into two particular questions. And we can see the scores that they attribute to them and understand how well that outcome is being met and how often they encounter it. We can also look and put that into the model of an individual user. So going back to the interaction history within a database that you may have, a CRM, we can look at Joe here, who spends most of his time working. That's his primary need at a coffee shop. But we can also look and see that he wants to feel connected to the community, and that sometimes he hosts meetings. And so we can use that to better reach Joe or whoever it may be when he comes into the coffee shop. And from that, we can also go and look at all the other segments. So I showed you that list of different needs that were being fulfilled by the neighborhood coffee shop. And out of that, we had maybe 8 or 9 different themes arise, and these are the top 5. Going there to meet others, going there to hang out with friends, going there to get work done, going there to have a sense of creativity, and going there to have a sense of community. And when put on a chart like this, we can actually see where to focus our efforts. We can see that the people who go there to meet with friends go there more often than people within other customer segments. And we can also see how well that's being performed by the coffee shop. We can see that maybe people who are there on business meetings, a need is not being met. Maybe there's not enough outlets or something else along those lines. But we can look and adapt how we put that experience out to the users in order to better meet those needs-based segments. This is another example that we've done internally at Cass & Hugh with a client of ours to understand the needs of a spine and back clinic. And so what we're doing in this project is we actually did this exact method that I just showed you to understand what the needs were of people who needed same-day back pain. And so as an outcome of this research, we were able to understand that when someone goes into that spine and back clinic, they had different needs throughout different portions of the process. Some people, they need to get on their feet right away. Some people needed more compassion. But there's a number of different needs that were being fulfilled by the exact same product, and allowed us to adapt that experience to meet those needs. Like I said, as they were going throughout that process, their needs, they actually changed. And we can see here, people may have different needs throughout that process. Like going back to Allie and Amber, maybe for Allie, she needed more compassion than information during the claim process, whereas with Amber, it would have been switched, and she needed more information compared to more compassion. And as they were moving through this journey, based upon the information that we had on how they were acting and what their past interactions with the brand were, we were able to understand how to actually go and adapt that process for them. So how does this work in the real world? I already showed you one example of the spine and back clinic, but there's also other examples out there. For example, Allie and Amber, although they're fictional, they've actually, health insurance companies are starting to adapt to the needs that they have along those lines. For example, a previous company I worked for, they had this very, excuse me, this very same problem that they were trying to address. And they used the interaction history that they had to understand how they moved throughout that care journey. They saw that when someone looked at particular pages of the website, they were able to attribute that to either more compassion within their care journey, or attribute that to certain ailments that they had. And when someone called into that call center that this insurance company had, they were actually able to know with a high degree of accuracy why they were calling and what they needed before they even had to explain it on the phone. But we can use this in more simplistic products as well. For example, look at Chipotle. Chipotle does a great job of needs-based segmentation. You go to Chipotle, and they only have one product. They have the burrito, and you go in and you can get whatever you want on that burrito, or the tacos, or the quesadilla, but they sell the Mexican food. But if you think about all the different ways that you can experience that, either you can go in, you can stand in line, and you can get your food to go. You can go and order on your mobile app and walk from the office to Chipotle and have it ready to go, walk in, walk right out. You can even get a margarita and a beer and hang out with friends. Those are all different needs segments that one product is fulfilling, but by tweaking it a little bit, they can approach all these different segments in a slightly different way without wildly altering their product. And one final example that I have is grocery store delivery services. So you may have seen these at Walmart or Kroger or other grocery stores, but they actually deliver the food right to your home. Now, everyone is probably buying the same exact food. They're going and they're getting oranges and eggs and maybe a steak for dinner. But they're being approached in different ways. Some people, they may have a family of 5 and they don't have time to go shopping. And other people may be foodies who go in and they want the exact apple that's right at the very tippy top where no one has touched and has no blemishes on it at all. The grocery store is selling the same product, but by tweaking their service a little bit, they're able to approach all these different segments of customers and adapt to the needs that they have in that moment. So my message to you all is to go away and think about how your customers are segmented out based on needs. Those segments that we talked about at the very beginning that you have right now, chances are you don't know the needs that your customers have in those various segments. And to do that, we can use jobs to be done and needs analysis. Thank you.